Welcome to the second part of my 3-part video training course for beginning divers. If you haven't seen the first part, I'll link to it in the description below. Now in the second part, I'm going to cover 7 newbie mistakes to avoid. Now I made all these mistakes, but that's the point. I made them, so I want to teach you what I did and most importantly, how to avoid making them yourself. But this video should help you shorten that learning curve and not make these mistakes on your next dive. Just like in the first part, I'm going to go around on the other side of the computer. Now the first thing I want to discuss is feeling intimidated or pressure on the dive boat, which can sometimes lead to diving outside of your training limits or what you're prepared for. Now I know if you're a new diver, boat diving can be nerve-wracking. Because I was there once, I was a new diver once, and I felt intimidated on the dive boat. My first quite a few dives because I always thought everyone else knew what they were doing except me. Now I know it's easier said than done, but you can do that. Try and not feel intimidated. It's going to make your diving experience that much more enjoyable. So try not to feel like you're the only beginner on the boat or you're the only one that's not comfortable with what's going on, because chances are you're not alone. And I know I caused myself a lot of undue stress when I was beginning to dive because, like I said, I thought everyone else knew what they were doing. And I want to help you avoid that stress. So let's go over some tips to make you more comfortable on that boat dive so you're going to be able to experience more comfortable and relaxed diving. Now the first thing to remember is that everyone was a beginner once. Even that guy sitting next to you that tells you he has 3,500 dives or whatever the case may be, at one point he had 0 dives. Everyone was a beginner once. We all start at 0 dives. No one's born an experienced diver, so we all went through what you're going through. Now I know I felt that way, and it's hard to remember, but just think of that. It's kind of like when they tell you, you give a speech and they tell you to think of the audience without any clothes on to make you feel more comfortable. Well, this is the diving equivalent of giving a public speech. It's to remember that everyone had 0 dives at one point. They're just in a different point in the process, so it's no big deal. Just try and feel comfortable and don't be intimidated by the amount of dives that someone else may have. Because along that vein, you don't want to compare yourself to other divers, because basically what difference does it make if the guy next to you does have 3,500 dives and you have, say, 15 or whatever the case may be? It makes no difference to you when you're diving. So however many dives someone else on the boat has, it has no bearing on your dive. So just concentrate on yourself, concentrate on your gear so you can try and relax, think about the dive, what you're going to do, and don't worry about anyone else on the boat, except your dive buddy, of course. So just concentrate on yourself and don't worry about the other divers. And a problem with feeling intimidated or pressure on the dive boat is that can lead you to do some dives that you may not be prepared for. So you never ever want to dive beyond your ability. Because many of the dive accident stories you read involve a diver doing a dive for which they didn't receive proper training, so obviously this is a big no-no. Now if you're feeling pressured and you think there's some type of dive that you may not be prepared for, like maybe there's a wreck dive or you're going in a cave or whatever it may be, talk to the dive master, talk to your dive buddy, and see what your plan of action is going to be, because you never want to do a dive that you're not prepared for. So you want to let the dive master know what your level of training is, and if you're not going to go in the wreck, if they were planning on penetrating the wreck because you're not properly trained for it, and there's no problem with that. That's fine. You can always hang outside the wreck, wait for the other people to come. Just let the dive master know. That should make you feel more comfortable too, because then that dive master can keep an eye on you also, maybe pay a little bit more attention to you. He knows you're not feeling comfortable with that dive. And even if maybe you're not feeling that much intimidation or pressure, it may be tempting to enter into that cave or enter into that wreck. But unless you know what you're doing, please don't go in there and wait until you have the proper training or the proper experience to have that nice safe dive. Whatever you want to do, not just new divers, even experienced divers, you don't want to do a dive for which you're not properly trained. And I don't want to be reading about you at one of those dive accident stories. So just keep that in mind. So don't feel pressure on the boat. Try not to be intimidated on the boat. Remember that everyone's a new diver once, and just don't dive beyond your ability. Just relax, enjoy the dive, and be comfortable with the dive that you're going to do. And one thing I see new divers doing, or not doing as the case may be, is not practicing their safety skills. So, okay, you've gone through the certification course, you had to take your regulator out of your mouth, you had to take your mask off, you had to do all these diving skills to make you a safer diver. But then once you pass your certification course, a lot of divers don't practice those skills anymore. So what's going to happen then when, say someone knocks your regulator out of your mouth, then it can lead to panic and not a good situation. So if you practice these safety skills on a regular basis, if something like that does happen, say your regulator does get knocked out of your mouth or your mask gets knocked off, you've practiced that, you're comfortable with it, so you're not going to panic. And a good spot to practice these skills are on your safety stop or on the surface before you go down or after you come up from a dive. So if you're just sitting there hanging out, you got to hang out for 3 to 5 minutes anyway at your safety stop. Why don't you try taking that regulator out of your mouth and putting it back in to make sure you're just comfortable with the feeling, you know you can do it. Obviously talk to your dive buddy first. Maybe you can watch each other do it so he knows what you're doing, doesn't think something's happening to you or don't have air or something like that. Discuss it with them beforehand before you go down. Say, I'm going to, maybe practice these safety skills on our safety stop, or maybe just talk to them as you're hanging out waiting to go down and do some of the safety skill practices there, as you're waiting for the other divers to get in the water. So that way, if something does happen, you're going to be prepared for it on later dive. And one thing some new divers do is going to be ignore the pain in their ear. If they're going down and they can't properly equalize, you're going to feel pain in that ear. But some divers are just going to try and go through that pain, like fight through it, because maybe they don't want to be the last one to descend. They don't want to hold up the group, whatever it may be. But you never ever want to do that, because as we discussed in the first training video, some 80% of new divers are going to show some signs of damage to the eardrum occurring beginning of their dive career. And it's probably because you just want to shoot past that pain because you want to get down and not have to hold other people up. But don't do that. You never want to ignore that pain in your ear. And if you are feeling pain, obviously the quickest and most common way to get rid of that pain is to ascend. Let the pressure off, go up a few feet, and hopefully that pain will go away. But don't start descending anymore until you get rid of that pain. And if you have to call a dive, you have to call a dive. You're not going to be the first one. I've seen it happen many times. But whatever you do, don't ignore that pain in your ear. That brings us to our next mistake, which is not recognizing the symptoms of decompression sickness. Now, there's no definitive sign that is in every case of decompression sickness, but there are common ones. And the most common ones are really the pain in the joints and or muscles of the arms, legs, or torso, or numbness and tingling in your body or your extremities. Other symptoms can include, unusual fatigue, maybe dizziness, ringing in the ears, some shortness of breath, or maybe a rash on your skin, and difficulty urinating. There's quite a few signs and symptoms of DCS, but you have to be aware of what they are. And in most cases, your symptoms or signs of DCS are going to show up pretty soon after you finish your dive. It usually shows up within 15 minutes to usually 12 hours is the most common time frame, but it can show up earlier or later. And when it shows up later, it's usually in conjunction if you took a flight after you dove. But for the most part, it's going to show up fairly early after you finish your dive. So you want to take really a true assessment of how you're feeling after you finish your dive, especially the first 24 hours after you surfaced. You don't want to explain away any sign of DCS as something else, because actually it's said many times that the first symptom of DCS is denial. You want to attribute that pain you may be feeling in your joint or that numbness you're feeling in your fingers to something else. But if you have just surfaced from a dive within the past 24 hours, you really want to take that into account. Realize that the possibility could exist that you could have DCS. Now, sometimes it can go away from it by itself, but many times it may not. So you may need to go consult a doctor. And if you do think you have DCS, however minor it may be, I would highly recommend to go consult a doctor to make sure that everything is okay and you are not suffering from decompression sickness. Now, the next mistake I'd like to discuss is not planning for problems. You don't take into account something that may happen while you're doing your dive. Now, it may be because you think the dive master is going to take care of you or you feel safer with the dive master there. But as divers, we're all responsible for our own safety. So we all have to take responsibility for ourselves to have that safe dive and to be able to deal with any problems as they occur. Now, that's not to say that you can't have help or the dive master is not going to help you, but you just want to be able to take care of yourself and be responsible for your own safety. And a great way to do this and help you with this is to use the what if method. Now, the what if method is very simple. It's basically just thinking, what if something happened? For instance, like we talked about before, what if the regulator came out of my mouth? What if my mask came off? What if I lost my dive buddy? What would you do? You're going to go over these different scenarios in your mind and solve them in your mind. So if you're going to take the regulator out of your mouth, for instance, say, what if my regulator came out? What would I do? Okay, I would do the arm sweep behind my back, or I would take my octopus and put that in until I recovered my primary regulator. Whatever those steps may be, you're going to go through them in your mind before you even go on your dive, so you know what to do if, God forbid, something like that happened. So if you have this plan in your mind before you even go down, and if it does happen, you're going to know what to do. It's going to prevent minor problems from becoming major problems. And it can also help you not to panic underwater because you're going to be prepared for that situation. And it's a very easy thing to do, and it's really going to help you have a safer dive. So just go over in your mind and plan for those contingencies of what you would do in certain situations. It's a great discussion to have with your dive buddy so you both know what to do and you can bounce ideas off one another. And this is going to help you stay calm and be able to deal with that problem successfully underwater. So it'll give you guys something to think about and talk about when you're having a nice cold beer before you go on that dive trip. And that brings us to our next common mistake for new divers, is basically making changes in large increments. If you're not getting down, you're going to put 3 pounds of lead on your weight belt all at once. Or if you're down below, you're on the bottom, you're going to put a lot of air on your BC to get you up off the bottom. But this is not what you want to do. You want to make your changes in small increments, especially like you're doing a burst of air. You want to just do a short burst of air instead of holding that inflator button down for 10 seconds and you're just going to fly to the surface. Or you want to add a small amount of weight first and see if that helps with your problem, as we discussed in the other training video. And this really ties in perfectly with mistake number 7, is not waiting for those changes to take effect. So if you put air in your BC, don't expect everything to happen instantaneously. Give it a few seconds or so to take effect. So you put that little burst of air in your BC, hold on, don't put any more in. Give it a little bit. See if it's making you neutrally buoyant. Maybe you need a little bit more air, but maybe you don't. You're not going to know if you don't give it time. So you don't want to be constantly putting air in and constantly taking air out of your BC. So to help minimize that, make the adjustments, make it in small increments, and then wait for it to take effect. And then if you need to add a little bit more, that's fine, but just do it in small increments. So you want to make any changes that you do make in small increments and then wait for them to take effect. Okay, I said 7, but we're going to go with one more mistake that new divers tend to make, and that is not watching your gauges closely enough. You always want to know at any point in your dive what depth you're at and how much air you have left. So you want to think, like, if that dive master came over right now and asked you how much air is in your tank or how deep you are, you always want to think that you should know that right away. You shouldn't have to look at your gauges and give yourself a little bit of leeway there, but you shouldn't have to look at your gauges and be surprised that you see 1,500 pounds and you thought you had like 2,200 pounds. You should be looking at your gauges much more closely and much more often than that, especially as you're beginning to dive. You're going to have different air consumption on different dives, and you may not be able to control your buoyancy perfectly, so you could be going up and down. So you always want to keep a close eye on those gauges and always know where you are and how much air you have left in your tank at any point in time. So if you want more tips like these that cover all aspects of diving, just go to confidentnewdiver.com and you can get all the details on my complete video training course for new divers. And I hope to see you there. In the meantime, happy and safe diving.